Hello, and welcome to this episode of Berry Aftercare, the podcast. We are going to continue our series on communication. Last week, we talked about aggressive communication, and you learned way more about me than you probably ever wanted to know. And you're probably glad you didn't know me back in the day. I'm a much nicer person now than I used to be. All right, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to use some examples of aggressive communication that are specific to bariatric life and also beyond bariatric life, because this is an area of, concern for every human on the planet. Communication styles is what I'm referring to. So we talked about assertive communication, then we did some examples of healthy, positive, respectful, assertive communication. Last week, I talked about aggressive communication, what it is, what it looks like, what it sounds like. Tonight, we're going to talk about how we can take aggressive communication and tweak it and take examples and show how we can be assertive in those same situations. So a quick review and comparison of aggressive communication and assertive communication. Remembering the reasons we're reviewing these communication styles on a bariatric podcast, talking about why assertive communication is far preferable to aggressive communication, and then we'll get to those examples. All right, so I know you've heard this. You've heard this for several weeks, but I promise you, you could hear this every week for the next year before it might really sink in. So I think that this is worth repeating, and I will do it more briefly tonight, I promise. Now, I want you to remember that I'm reviewing first aggressive communication. And aggressive communication is ugly and nasty. And it is aggressive, and it is confrontational, and it is not considerate of other people. Aggressive communication, it's unfriendly, it's disrespectful, it's discourteous, I'm all about me. I win, you lose. It can be manipulative, it can be bullying, it can be controlling, it can be, a dominating person. It's somebody who's going to, by God, make their point, and they're going to be right. And they're going to try to coerce people into going along with whatever their point of view happens to be. So it ain't pretty, trying to get their own way. So do you remember years ago, there was a comedian and it was like, here's your sign. Well, here's your sign that you might be an aggressive communicator. Was that Jeff Foxworthy? You might be a redneck if. No, it was a different one. Here's your sign. But you can recognize an aggressive communicator non-verbally because they're going to roll their eyes, they're going to point the finger, they're going to pound their fist on the table, they're going to be huffing and puffing, or maybe get too close to you and give you the evil eye, have the mean face, have the loud voice. Really intimidating. Verbally, they're probably going to interrupt other people. They're going to talk over you, not give you a chance to finish what you're saying. They may engage in criticism, insults, blaming, name-calling, ultimatums, just completely disrespectful of the other people in the situation. They may make personal attacks. They're very argumentative, domineering. Don't say sorry, don't acknowledge their wrongdoing. They hold grudges. They get upset easily about things. They're very fragile, right? And other people really are often intimidated by people who have an aggressive communication style. And that is often the point of it. That's not who we want to be. We want to be an assertive communicator. An assertive communicator is respectful. It's a kind way of interacting. Assertive communication is honestly, so you're honestly sharing. You're being honest with yourself and with another person about how you're feeling, about what you're thinking, and about what you would like in a given situation. And you respect how they think and how they feel and what they need as well. So it's definitely a win-win. And it's compassionate, right? It's compassionate, it's mindful, it's considerate. There's a feeling of safety. I respect your boundaries, you respect my boundaries. We listen to each other, and it's cooperative. So a lot of people mistakenly think that assertive means I'm going to be confrontational. I avoid conflict at all costs. No, that's aggressive. Assertive is good. You want to be assertive. I want you to be assertive. A lot of people, especially, if you've lived a life where you've struggled with your weight, it's sometimes easy for people to fall back into the shadows, right? I don't want to make a scene. I don't want to make a fuss. I don't want to, maybe you don't feel worthy yourself of saying what you think or how you feel or what your opinion is. That's not how we want you to live. It doesn't matter your size, your shape, your weight, the color of your hair, your eyes, your skin. Everyone has a right to use assertive communication, to assert themselves, just to say, this is me, this is how I feel, this is how I think. So it's a human right. So I want you to give yourself permission to be assertive in your communications with each other or with other people. Now, how do you hear what's the sign of an assertive communicator? They're relaxed. They're going to look you in the eyes, but they're not going to give you the evil eye. They're not going to penetrate you. They're not going to give you, the stare down like an aggressive person. So it's relaxed facial, relaxed body posture, calm tone of voice, listening actively, making sure that I heard you. I'm going to affirm you. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to say, I hear that this is what you're asking for. I understand that you're feeling this way. Do I have that correct? I'm going to invite you. Please tell me how you're feeling. I need to know what are you thinking? I would like to know. It's respectful. And remember, the reasons that we're reviewing these communication styles on a bariatric podcast, because you're working on developing a whole new lifestyle after bariatric surgery. And part of this is way beyond your eating and your exercise. And a lot of people think, yeah, bariatric lifestyle, change how you eat, make sure you exercise. This is for the rest of your life. And so it's an ongoing evolution of you as a whole person. As your weight changes, your self-esteem changes, your outlook on the world changes, you're maybe more engaged, you're more willing to try new things. And so hopefully one of the things you're more willing to try is to be more assertive in your communication. So this is for the rest of your life. And I want you to practice being heard and doing so in a polite and respectful way. So we, as in you and me, yes, I am taking the liberty of assuming you're in this with me, are interested in having an amazing life, having a life that goes beyond just being able to move because you have more energy and less physical weight, but you want to be amazing in every area of your life. You want to have good relationships. You want to feel good about yourself and how you interact with other people. So it's time for you to live your best life and be your best self. So we're working on some skills that are life skills directly and indirectly, but beyond just the bariatric life issues. So we're going to address these bariatric issues and also go beyond bariatrics. So today, we're going to be using the information you've gotten in the past 3 episodes of the podcast. We're going to talk about real life episodes or real life examples of how to back off if you're an aggressive communicator and becoming more of an assertive communicator. And why do we want to do that? What are the reasons being an assertive communicator is far preferable, not just in your bariatric lifestyle, but in all areas of your life? There are so many reasons. Let's start with losing and maintaining your weight. People who are assertive communicators are generally calmer people. Why? Because they feel good about themselves. They feel like I have the right to be heard. I have the right to say what I want. I have some self-confidence. And being a calm person within yourself and believing in yourself has a lot to do with your overall health and your eating style, right? So overall health, people who are calmer, and this does include your communication style, because The more you're able to regulate your emotions, keep your body at a relatively calm state much of the time, your body's not going to be producing cortisol, not going to be having stress effects. And those are the things that cause all kinds of bad illnesses within your body. So that's a plus. The other thing is people who are assertive communicators and remain fairly calm in their life are a lot less likely to engage in one of the biggest things that leads to regain after surgery, which is emotional eating, right? Why? Because they don't get their undies in a wad all the time. They're not always fretting and brewing and stewing and, you know, thinking about what somebody said to them. Oh my gosh. This is an issue that I have observed in the bariatric community. And it makes sense. I have compassion for where this comes from. So if you're an overweight person for much of your life, you're thinking about what other people are thinking about you. You're worried about what other people are thinking. You're thinking they're watching you in the restaurant and they're making assumptions about you. And I understand that. But as you become a healthier individual all around, you want to give up that kind of thinking, right? Because A, who cares if they are thinking about you? And B, even if they are, it's momentary and they're on to the next person, right? So we got to get over this because that causes stress. That causes anxiety. That does not a calm person make. So we kind of have to get over obsessing about, worrying about what other people are thinking, or taking things personally that somebody may have said, and we're reflecting on it and perseverating on it and going it over it 1,000 times in our head and making it worse and worse and worse and worse, right? We got to chill. We got to live and let live. We got to quit making everything about us and say, doesn't matter to me what people think about me. Doesn't matter what people say about me. I matter to me. What matters to me is how I conduct my life, how I behave, how I communicate, how I interact, what I think, how I think about others, how I think about myself. I want to be healthy all the way around. The more you can develop the skills in your life to be your healthiest self, the less you're going to engage in unhealthy eating. There you have that. So assertive communicators, again, you're going to say what you mean. So therefore, if I tell you what I mean, you're not left second guessing. Well, did she mean this? She said this, but I wonder if she really meant that. No, I told you exactly what I meant. And you're not left feeling like, I didn't tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And then you might feel badly about yourself, right? So you want to live with a clear mind, clear communication, so that you're not wrestling internally with conflict. Assertive communicators aren't left with guilt. When I was an aggressive person, I felt guilty all the time. I knew what I said was hurtful. I knew I hurt other people and I knew I hurt myself. So guilt like that, what does it do for your own self-esteem and your own self-confidence? It wears at it. What happens when you get in that negative spiral? You turn to food, if that's been your go-to for comfort. So it's just another way to keep your life healthy is to get rid of the behaviors that cause you to feel bad about yourself and cause other people harm or damage or displeasure, right? So aggressive communicators, unless they say, pretty much, I was aware that I was being a total jerk. I have a slide in one of my classes that says assholeology. I was pretty aware that I was being an a-hole in a lot of situations when I was being an aggressive communicator. I'm not left with that feeling when I communicate in a very direct, assertive manner. I'm like, I said what I think. I said how I feel. I don't feel bad about it because I didn't hurt you or anybody else. And I certainly didn't hurt myself. So I feel good about me. So I don't need to seek pleasure or get a dopamine rush from food to make me feel better. So it's a positive cycle. So to sum this all up, your healthy eating behaviors and your weight loss are threatened by ways of communication, or they can be threatened by the ways you communicate or how you let people communicate towards you. So I've said this a lot of times. Most of us weren't taught healthy communication skills. Look around you. Look at customer service. How do people treat customer service people? They treat them like crap, right? In a lot of cases. That is aggressive. That is rude and disrespectful. And if you treat customer service people rude and disrespectfully, then hopefully you're aware and you feel guilt. Guilt is a good thing because guilt says, I did something I don't want to do. It goes against my values. Make amends. I am sorry. Call the customer service rep back and say, you didn't deserve that. I was rude to you. I have literally in an airport been not nice person to a person at the, where you go through the screening and the security. And I literally went back after I was at my gate and said, listen, I was a complete jerk. I am so very sorry. You are doing your job. And I was inappropriate, right? Because I don't want to live with how I feel when I am an asshole. So there you have that. All right. So here's the deal. If you want to improve your life, and I know you do, because you are working hard to maintain weight loss, you are working hard to develop healthy habits and healthy lifestyle. And some of this healthy lifestyle is about feeling better about yourself, and we will feel better about ourselves if we are better communicators. So, are you worth the time and effort it takes to do this work? Yes, you are. I hope you believe you are. I know you are. And I believe that you are. Are you important enough? Yes, you are. And if you don't believe that, do you believe the people in your life are important enough? Your partner, your family members, your children. Are they important enough? If they are, then that's a good enough place to start because eventually I believe you'll come around to realizing that you are worth it as well. Is your health worth the time and effort to learn healthy communication skills, just like it's worth the time and effort to learn healthy eating skills and healthy movement skills? Yes, you are a whole package. Your life is not just about healthy eating and healthy movement. Those are critical, but your life, every area of your life is impacted by the way you communicate or fail to communicate in a healthy way. So it is, in my opinion, absolutely worth the time and effort because your communication skills will affect how well you avoid, to some extent, emotional eating, at least insofar as it's related to your communication. So beyond the benefits of maintaining your weight loss and staying on track with your healthy bariatric lifestyle, what else are the benefits of using assertive communication? I was just talking about it. Your self-worth, your self-confidence, your self-efficacy. Every time you can do something, engage in a behavior that increases your self-confidence, that's a move forward. Practice makes progress. Every time you do something in any area of your life where you feel positive and accomplished and proud, it moves you forward. You can do this with your communication and increase your self-worth, your self-confidence, and your belief in your ability to do these things. It's a beautiful thing. I say that a lot. It's a beautiful thing. So when your self-worth, your confidence, your belief that you can increases, then you feel better about yourself and you're less likely to engage in emotional eating. So let's use some examples, all right? Here's some bariatric specific examples. So let's say your mom or your sibling or your spouse, your best friend repeatedly says to you when you eat any sort of processed food, right? Keep in mind, as a bariatric patient, you don't need to eat perfectly, right? You don't need to do anything in your life perfectly because perfectly is a setup for failure. So I always tell people, you can check with your dietitian, right? And it's a made up number, but go for most of the time, like 85% plus the time. I'm going to eat healthy, nutritious, real food. There are going to be times when you eat something processed, but let's say you're in a situation when somebody in your life, anytime you eat a potato chip or an M&M or whatever it is, Any kind of processed food, you get the look, followed by, are you sure you're supposed to eat that? Now, not only does this frustrate you in the moment, right? Every time they say this, and it should frustrate you. That's a normal, healthy reaction, right? But it could also trigger miserable memories from your childhood. Who knows how long that went on when people would say to you, maybe it was your mom, your grandma, your cousin, everybody would say the exact same thing. Are you sure you need to be eating that? So it would make sense that maybe you feel overwhelming anger, or maybe you feel overwhelming shame or powerlessness or whatever. It's not going to be a good feeling in response to that, right? You might want to blow up. You might want to respond in a very aggressive manner, which might sound something like this. Stop. Maybe you stand up, you point your finger, and you're shouting, I am so sick of your critique and your judgment about what I put in my mouth. I've heard this from you for literally decades. If it's somebody that's been doing it for decades, right? I never want to hear you comment on anything I put in my mouth again. Now, this level of intensity might be understandable, right? But a blow up is probably only going to make everybody feel horrible, right? And maybe part of you is like, well, they deserve to feel horrible. They've been making me feel horrible for years. That's not who we want to be. We want to be a person who is respectful, right? We want to be our best self, even if they're not being their best self. I get it. I have compassion for that. And that is something you might want to call your friend and say. You might want to verbalize it in that way to your therapist. But when you're talking to the person, if you want to have a relationship with this person that gets closer and not further away and leads you to the pantry to overeat, you got to learn to be more assertive and not so aggressive, right? Because if you respond in that kind of aggressive way, what are you probably going to end up with? You're going to end up with a fight, an argument, more disrespect, which could escalate to saying things that you might regret saying, and you can't take them back, right? So, if you're aware of your emotions at that time, and maybe you have the wherewithal not to overreact, but before you blow up, maybe take a time out for a few minutes, right? Maybe go sit outside in your car and scream and holler and say all the nasty, ugly things you want to, but it's not going to hurt anybody else. Or maybe you call a friend and you say, oh, I have to get this out. I'm so angry and I'm so hurt and I can't stand it. They do this every time. Blah, 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 right? Your friend knows this isn't about her. She's willing to listen to you vent and holler and invite you to do it, right? Then, after you've gotten it out, you can address the person involved, let's say it's your mom, in an assertive way, setting healthy boundaries at the same time. So, rather than the blow up, an assertive way to handle that same situation would be, I need to tell you that when you ask me if I should be eating something, I feel extremely angry for several reasons. First, you've asked that question to me for most of my life, and it's hurtful. When I hear that question, I have decades of pent up frustration, and it rises up in me. You might not mean it in the way that I'm taking it, but I'm not taking it well. And I would appreciate if you could refrain from ever saying that to me again. If you can't respect this request, I'm no longer going to have meals with you. Mic drop. End of story. Fair and firm. Now, until you have learned healthy communication skills and how to be assertive, it's not going to come naturally. This took me years and years and years and years of practice, and practice makes progress. So slowly over time, I made progress. It took a long time before my natural inclination to be aggressive didn't get the best of me. But with practice, you can do better. And here's something that I would recommend. If you're in therapy, talk to your therapist about the kinds of scenarios that trigger you, right? We have eating triggers, right? And then we have emotional triggers that work us up in other ways. And if you have triggers that have resulted in you being aggressive toward people or lashing out at people, you might want to say to your therapist, when they say this to me, I usually lash out, or this kind of situation, my anger usually gets the best of me and I lash out. You know your triggers. Work on those situations in therapy so that you can practice. You can also start in smaller scale, right? The people that are going to trigger us the most are the people that we grew up with, our family we grew up with, and the family that we create. So our spouses, sometimes our kids, but our siblings, our parents, and our spouses are usually the ones that are going to push our buttons that we react to the most. So it's going to be most difficult with them, but it can be learned and it can be practiced, and you can make progress there. Now, let's say that you blow up, right? Mom says this, you spew, you blow, you have your reaction, right? It doesn't have to lead you to the pantry to overeat. You can, because now what's happened is here's you and here's mom. She said that nasty thing. You turned around, you got angry, and you came at her with your aggression, right? Now mom's turned away from you, you're turned away from mom, and you retreat from each other. But you love your mom. She loves you, right? You want to be close. But now you're both backed into your corners, right? She's hurt, you're hurt. She's pissed, you're pissed. Time goes by. If you or mom, but we're worried about you right now because you can only change you. If you come back to her and call her and say, Mom, I'd like to talk to you and I'd like to apologize. With that kind of an introduction, mom is likely to turn towards you, right? And now you can say, I really responded disrespectfully to your comment, but here are some things I need to tell you, right? So then you have the assertive talk with her. You apologize for how you blew up and reacted. And you don't say, but if you wouldn't have said that, I apologize for how I reacted. This is what I need to tell you. And then you give her the assertive talk. That is another way to help you heal and grow. And then you can resume, connecting in your relationship. So it's not like you're going to get this the first several hundred times. But if you can go back and make the amends and say, this is what I wish I had said at that time, and then do it then, it's going to be such a bridge to that relationship. And then you're going to get practice with the kind of communication that you want to engage in. So it doesn't mean if you blow it like I did so many times, even though I had the intention. Or here's what happened with me a lot too. So I would go in with my assertive mindset and my anger at bay, and I would say something. And if it was my sister or my husband or whoever, wasn't of that same mindset that we are going to have a healthy adult to adult conversation, then maybe they'd snark at me. Okay, take a breath. I can do this. And maybe I'd say something repeating, just this is what I'm saying. This is how I'm feeling. And they would snark back at me. After about 3 or 4 times and they start pushing my buttons, then I would unleash and there would come my fury again, right? But it was progress, slight progress, but progress nonetheless. And then I could come back and say, I blew it. I blew it. I need to take responsibility. This is what I needed to say, right? And do it over until the time comes when that's happened enough times and you can go in and no matter what they come back at you with, because unfortunately, unless we have somebody who's also willing to work on their communication styles, we're not going to get the kind of response we're hoping for, right? But we still are responsible for keeping our calm and staying assertive and not becoming aggressive, right? All right, let's do another example. So let's say you go to a holiday dinner and you've got immediate family there, you've got extended family there, and there's a cousin that's coming. And let's say that you've been compared to this cousin all of your life, and she is going to be there. She was the golden cousin in the family. Oh, she was the healthy weight. She excelled in school. She could sing. She played on the varsity tennis. Why couldn't you just be more like her? Right? All the cousins were compared to her. So neither you nor any of the other cousins could live up to the way the adults in the family praised her. And she wasn't kind about it, right? She knew that she was the favorite, and she lorded her apparent superiority over all the other cousins. So nobody really liked this chick, right? So now you guys are all grown up. You had bariatric surgery. You're feeling good about yourself. You lost 140 pounds, right? And last year at Thanksgiving, for the first time in as long as you can remember, there was so much positive fuss made over you. It was like, wow, look at you, all the fuss, all the good things, all the positive comments, and wow, you know, how hard, they were talking about you've really worked hard. It was so nice to see you looking healthier. It was, it's just so nice to see you looking healthy, right? So since last Thanksgiving, you've regained 50 pounds and you are dreading the family dinner. And rightly so, because as you expected, at one point in the evening, the seemingly perfect cousin, sidles up next to you and says in a tone loud enough for only you to hear, looks like somebody's not been working quite as hard as they did last year. With that, she glides on past, leaving you frozen. You are drowning in shame. You are drowning in humiliation. You are drowning in rage. So when you're able to move, you run to the bathroom. And in the bathroom, the tears spill out, spill out, spill out. After a few minutes, you look yourself in the eye in the mirror. You stand straight up, you dry your eyes, and you have this aggressive conversation to nobody present. So you're not hurting anybody, but you are letting your emotions out, right? You say, listen, you self-centered, arrogant B word. I've had enough of feeling less than you or less than anybody else in my life. You can kiss my behind, but you're never going to get away with talking to me that way again without me saying something back to you. I would love to scream at you. I would love to humiliate you the way you've humiliated so many of us for much of our lives, but I will not lower myself to that level. What I will do, however, is this. You touch up your makeup. You smile at yourself in the mirror. You walk into the family room and straight toward your perfect cousin. She sees you coming toward her, noting the confidence in your stride, and she sees on your face that you mean business. But you're not mean, you're not glaring, you're calm, but you're determined. You're being assertive. You walk up to her and you say out loud in a calm but direct tone, I'd really appreciate if you'd step outside with me or into the next room for just a minute. She can hardly refuse because you asked kindly and a lot of other people heard you ask, right? So there she goes with you and you're alone with her. And calmly, you look into her eyes and you say, I've carried a lot of resentment towards you for a lot of years. And honestly, as an adult, I understand it wasn't really your fault. I understand that what happened was related to the way all the adults compared the rest of us to you. I didn't appreciate the way you seemed to look down on all of us, but that may have been my own insecurity. Regardless, when you said to me earlier today that I didn't seem to be working so hard this year, I felt judged. I felt intense shame. I was sad and I was mad. The truth is, I've really been struggling. I've been struggling a lot to try to prevent weight regain, and I'm working hard to lose it. So whether it seems like it to you or not, I am working hard. I'd appreciate if you would keep judgmental, negative, and accusatory statements like that to yourself. Then calmly walk away. You were direct. You had purpose. You were respectful, but firm. Way to go, you. That is so much more powerful and has so much more impact than any kind of blowing up and losing your crap would ever have. Because the blow up would say, ooh, poked that bear, right? And give them the satisfaction of that. You're entitled to have the blow up, right? But do it when you're with a safe person who it's not about. Do it when you're with your therapist. Do it when you're alone in the car, right? Get all the anger and frustration, sadness, shame, grief out because you don't want to keep that in you. But when you talk to somebody and when you're directing the conversation to the issue, then you want to be calm, assertive, respectful, right? So get all the anger and frustration and sadness out by yourself with a close friend or with your therapist. But when you confront that cousin, you be assertive, fair, and firm. So let me go over that conversation with her again, the one that you had when you were being assertive, right? You're not being ugly, you're not being rude, but you're also saying you're not treating me like this. And you're explaining, this is how I feel. This is what I think. This is my observation. So you're sharing with her where you're coming from, not necessarily what she's doing, right? So let me repeat it again. To listen for the fair and firm and the I statements. I have carried resentment toward you. So I'm saying, I own this. I've resented you for a long time, right? But as an adult, I'm looking back and I realized that it was only partly you because when you think about the situation from an adult perspective, it's like those adults had no right to compare any of these kids to this cousin, right? They set her on a pedestal. What were you going to do but resent her, right? So part of it was the adults doing. So you're acknowledging part of this, I understand. I get it. I didn't appreciate how you seemed to look down on the rest of us. So I'm not making an accusation. I'm not saying you did this. This is how it seemed. It seemed that you looked down on the rest of us. But that may have been my own insecurity, right? That's very different than accusing and blaming somebody. This is my observation of how it was, but it could be me, right? Regardless. When you said to me today that I'm not working as hard this year. So when you said this to me, I felt judged. I felt shame. I felt sadness. I felt anger. You're not saying you made me feel. This is how I felt in response to what you said. Here's the truth. I've been struggling. Now I'm being vulnerable. I'm sharing my truth. I've been struggling. I've been struggling with this weight regain. I've been struggling to get this weight regain off, and I am working hard. It may not seem like it to you, but it doesn't matter. I know that I'm working hard. I would appreciate you keeping judgmental, negative, accusatory statements to yourself, because what she said to you was judgmental. It was accusatory. It was disrespectful and negative, right? So I would appreciate you keeping those comments to yourself. This is what I would like. This is what I would appreciate. Enough said. I was never rude. I owned my thoughts. I owned my feelings. And I said what I needed. So you might not feel good about any of what happened between the two of you, but you can feel really good about the fact that you stood up for yourself in a respectful way. Firm, fair I statements. My observations, my thoughts, my feelings. You cannot go wrong with that. That is not aggressive. That is assertive. That's what we're going for. All right. So, how about some beyond bariatric examples? Let's say you're having an argument with your kids about your spending habits. That's happened a few times from people I know. Maybe your partner's upset with you because you guys have made an agreement, right? You've agreed to stick to the budget, and you have agreed that any kind of purchase you make over $400, let's say. No. I'm coming back. I'm getting my example wrong. All right. So what happened, as they say here in the South? So you guys had an agreement to stick to the budget, right? You had agreed upon the budget, but you went and purchased a $400 item without discussing it with your partner, right? So this resulted in an insufficient funds charge, right? Makes sense that your partner would not be too happy about that because you breached your agreement to stick to the budget, and then you incurred an extra expense. So they ask to have a conversation with you about it, right? You're already feeling guilty. You're already feeling shameful about the entire situation. So you go in feeling a little bit defensive, right? You're feeling aggressive. You're feeling defensive because you want to protect yourself from being held accountable, which they have a right to do, hold you accountable because you agreed to this. So your partner's barely begun to talk about the situation and you cut them off, right? This is the aggressive, unhealthy part of the example, right? So loudly and aggressively you say, hey, I'm not the only one who's ever done this. You remember that time, man? You spent a whole lot of money on that stupid golfing equipment. I don't remember being consulted then. So yeah, I spent too much money, but you're just a hypocrite. I spent the money, so sue me. Childish, right? I've been there, I've done that. Very childish. All right, well, now, what a great way to be aggressive and get the focus off yourself, right? A total tantrum. So, now, I've been there, I've done it, I've done worse, right? When it comes to child aggressive temper tantrums that were intended to guilt the other person and to get them to back off. So I don't have to feel the pressure of what I know I have done. That was inappropriate. I don't want to own up to it. And now I've just made it worse because now I've been disrespectful, I've been aggressive, I'm mean, whatever. So even this isn't a bariatric example. If I struggle with emotional eating, that is likely to come into play here because my husband now, or my partner, or we've turned our backs to each other, right? They're hurt, they're angry, you're feeling guilty, you're feeling remorseful, you're feeling ashamed of yourself for all kinds of reasons. Off you go to eat to get that high from the food, right? So what's the aftermath? Probably if you guys engaged in that conversation, it could have gone on for 30 minutes or 2 hours of more arguing, not just about the money you spent, but the things your partner. Here you go. You go on a rant. It's like, well, you didn't help me a couple months ago when we were getting ready for vacation, and your partner's irritated with you for always forgetting to move the clothes from the washer to the dryer, and you're talking about you're mad because they don't volunteer to take and you are off on these tangents. And we have gotten completely away from what we came here to discuss about, right? Because now we're bringing up things that don't even relate to this situation and maybe happened years ago. And oh my God, here you go, right? Now your relationship is bruised. You're feeling bad, they're feeling bad, right? Maybe you storm out of the house or they storm off the house and you get in the car and go to your fast food, whatever. It's a major lose, right? Okay, so you blew it. Now, this isn't who you want to be in your life. So now you're going to talk to your therapist, talk to your friend, write it out, journal, whatever you have to do to come to a place where you're centered again, right? Now you're going to go to your partner calmly and say, listen, I am 100% responsible for how things escalated yesterday. That's going to get your partner to turn and face you, right? It's like, okay, I'm willing to hear what you have to say. That's a step in the right direction, right? I'm really feeling ashamed how I feel. I feel ashamed. I feel guilty. First of all, about having spent that money without talking to you. We'd agreed upon our spending limit. We'd agreed upon our budget. And I didn't respect you enough to talk to you about it. And then I got that additional fee. So I understand why you were angry about that. And then I hurt you with words, right? I attacked you. I wanted to lessen my guilt and I took it out on you. And I know that was wrong. I'm so sorry. I know you may need some time to process before you're able to forgive me. So I hope you will take the time you need and be able to forgive me. Now, can you imagine what that would do for your relationship to bring you back closer together? Do you do that? Are you willing to be that person who goes and says, I messed up, I blew it, and then I made it worse? And I'll tell you, the impact that has had on my life has been phenomenal. Phenomenal. I have so much more self-esteem because I am willing, and it doesn't mean I handle it right the first time every time, but I will go back and I will make it right. And I will introduce the topic by saying, I did this. I was wrong. You deserve an apology from me, right? That just opens the door. It builds that bridge. All right. So in that case, you've been willing to have a healthy, assertive conversation, right? Now, let's say you do the practice makes progress, right? So if, you know, when you get to a point where you're able to get over yourself and just have that assertive conversation from the beginning, it might look something like this. So the spouse tells you they're upset that you didn't talk about the purchase. You'd both agreed that any purchases over whatever number, $200, whatever, would be discussed between you, right? So they tell you they're upset about that and the insufficient funds fee, right? Now, when we're able to, whenever in life this happens, but if you want to be a healthy, accountable adult, I want to be my best self. I want to work toward being my best self, right? Who has good assertive communication skills. Here's how that conversation might go right off the bat. I agree. I agree. You have every right to be upset with me. I did not follow through with the agreement we made about our spending. I am truly, truly sorry. I'm going to repay that money from my account and cover the cost of those additional fees. There's no excuse for what I did. It was disrespectful to you and it was disrespectful to our relationship. Like, wow, right? What would that be like? Think about how much healthier the world in general would be if everybody would work on their communication. If we would get over our defensiveness, if we would get over our protectiveness, if we would get over reacting out of our insecurities, our shame, our protection, what a different world it would be. What different examples we would give to our children. We're never going to be perfect like that, right? But I'll tell you what, we can get better. And we can get better and better. Practice makes progress, and we can progress. The more effort we put into something, the more quickly we will progress in the outcome. So just like with your bariatric eating, the more quickly or the more diligently you practice what the dietitian has told you in terms of how often to eat, making sure you eat protein first, getting the water in, all those things, the more it becomes part of your lifestyle, and you just automatically eat that way after you've practiced and made progress and progress and progress and progress. The same can be true with your communication. The same can be true with how you communicate with the people you love. And if you have to go back for the next 3 years and redo the conversation, that's okay, because you're learning and growing and teaching and coming together. And what a great thing you're teaching anybody who has the absolute privilege of seeing you come back and make amends and approach things from an assertive standpoint. I'm going to say it again. It's a beautiful thing. All right, I'm going to give you one more example, then we'll go ahead and wrap up, all right? So in this example, I'm going to call this person Samantha. All right, so let's say Samantha has a reputation at work. She's aggressive, she's intimidating, people see her coming, they just kind of scatter, right? Her entire demeanor is seen as being aggressive. She's been known to roll her eyes when people on her team share ideas. We know Samantha's not happy with that, right? You are subpar to her. So here's a recent example of her aggressive style of communication about an employee's performance review. So for the review, Samantha, here's the aggressive performance review, right? She's seated behind her fancy schmancy desk and she stares at the employee, and maybe she's got her arm crossed and she's got the negative eyes, right? The poor employee's like obviously nervous. So for several very, very long seconds, Samantha just sits there quietly, right? Clearly disappointment, frustration on her face, right? Finally, after intimidating you with the silence, she speaks. You know, I've been thinking about your last 3 performance reviews. You're clearly not improving at your job. And in fact, I'd say your performance is getting worse. I've got to wonder if you're lazy, if you're just not interested in the job, or if you're actually trying to get yourself fired. Her tone was not loud, but it was definitely intense and intentionally intimidating, right? No wonder she's got the reputation she's got, right? Who likes this person? Nobody likes this person. How does this person live with herself? I don't know. Let's assume the woman's got a conscience, right? So I don't know. I just know that when I know my behavior is ugly, I feel ugly about myself on the inside. And then I'm going to treat myself ugly on the outside. I may numb with food, I may numb with alcohol, I may numb, but clearly that is not a happy woman, right? She's intentionally being intimidating. We can make some assumptions about her, but we can't know for sure, right? One of my biggest pet peeves is saying, well, she's clearly not happy, or she's clearly jealous, or we don't know. But we can surmise that whatever's going on with her is not a good thing. If you ever watched the movie Cool Runnings, one of my favorites, I reference it often, right? Whatever's wrong with her is no little thing. It's a line from the movie, right? So she's not a happy person. I wonder if she numbs herself with food. Or if you're that employee, if you've got an issue with food and you leave there feeling pretty awful, maybe you go numb yourself with some substance to increase your dopamine, right? Well, we don't want to let people affect us that way, because in that situation, not that we can diagnose her, but we can clearly say, is that a you issue or is that a her issue? Her delivery was a her issue. I don't know about your work performance, if she's right or if she's wrong, but that delivery was a her issue. So you don't need to take that on. But let's say we have a healthy, direct, assertive, nice Samantha, And maybe the employee review is not good, right? But somebody who's kind and assertive and compassionate is going to approach the situation in a much different way. So they might sit next to the person, not do the power position behind the big fancy desk, right? Put lots of distance between us, but they might go sit face to face across from the person with nothing in between them, which is a much more open, kind of inviting situation, right? They're going to look the employee in the face, but not with anger or disgust. They're just going to look at them with compassion and say in a calm, firm, fair way, I'm really, really glad that we have this chance to talk today. Can I offer you some coffee, some water? So I'm being polite. I'm being respectful. I'm trying to invite you to a place where you feel comfortable. I'm not trying to intimidate you. I'm concerned about the reviews that I've gotten from your supervisors, and I'd like to see how you're feeling about your job. So I'm letting you know I'm concerned. I feel concerned about the feedback I'm getting. I would like your feedback. I would like to know what you think. What a beautiful thing, right? What a compassionate, I'm being direct, I'm being assertive, I'm letting you know there's a concern here, but I'm being respectful and asking you for your input, all right? Then I'm going to continue to be direct. There are some areas where your performance needs improvement. Okay? I'm not calling you names. I'm not calling you stupid. I'm not calling you lazy. There are some areas that need improvement. But I'd like to find out if there's anything going on for you that makes the job difficult for you. Or maybe there are some personal things going on that you don't need to discuss them with me. I'd just like to get your side of the situation so that if you want to stay on here, we can help make sure to get the job being a better fit for you so that your supervisors can get the results that they need. Now, a person in her position has to be direct, has to say there's a problem. They have to let you know. But what a kind, direct, and respectful kind of communication. That's who I want to be because I want to feel good about me. I don't want to leave that difficult, right? It's a difficult discussion. And we have to have difficult discussions in our lives, but I want to leave there feeling like I was respectful and kind to you and that I invited you to share with me. And if I can be like that, you're much more likely to meet my energy, right? So, some take home messages. That was a lot. I hope you listen to this again. Healthy communication is a skill. We're not born with it. We got to learn it and we got to practice it. And practice makes progress, right? It's got to be practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced a bazillion times. So assertive communication can and will, not might, it will improve your self-esteem. It will improve your self-confidence. And it will likely help you avoid emotional eating and regain. That's why this is a skill that's critical in your bariatric lifestyle. And it's going to help in every single relationship. Siblings, parents, co-workers, partners, children, customer service, everywhere you go, it's gonna be better. They're all gonna be better, bar none, right? And even if the other person does not respond in kind, let's say they are aggressive or cruel or whatever, if you continue to use assertive, healthy, I feel, I think, I would like messages, things will improve. They absolutely will. So your health, which is what you're ultimately concerned about, and which I am hopeful you will continue to pour energy into and improve. Physical health, emotional health, relationship health, spiritual health will all be better when your behavior is in alignment with your values so that you feel good about yourself. And as I say all the time, when you feel good about yourself, your behavior towards yourself is going to show it. So here's some invitations, the action items, call to action. Encourage other people to listen, leave me comments, and maybe go to one person this week just one, with whom you've had a less than stellar conversation, didn't go so great, and redo it. Go to them with an assertive style, right? And see how differently it turns out. And even if they don't respond kindly, notice how you feel by taking responsibility for your part in whatever happened and sharing with them what you would like, how you feel, and what you think. I would love really to hear about that. So please follow the Berry Aftercare podcast. Join Berry Aftercare. We have all kinds of great information and education all the time. We've got more communication podcasts to come because we haven't covered passive communication or passive aggressive. It is worth the time listening to these podcasts on this topic because this is such an impact on your life and all of your relationships. So, as I always say, this is your life, it's your health, it's your responsibility this day and every day. Thanks for spending your time with me. It is truly, truly not taken for granted by me and much appreciated. See you next time.